Okay, great Tuesday, Arnaud. Arnaud, I'm sorry, my apologies, but this will be
Arnaud is good.
our first conversation in what I hope to be these weekly sessions as we talk about building out, working together to share information about the retreats that you're going to be doing, the content you're going to be producing, as well as just kind of each of us coaching each other in our different respective disciplines and platforms. So
Hmm.
I wanted to have these weekly sessions so that we can not only help each other, but as others listen to what we have to say, they might get some value on what we're saying as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Wonderful.
Because at the end of the day, I think that the role as conscious leaders is our responsibility that once we take up that mantle, so to speak, is to share with others.
Hmm.
How we're being conscious, how we're living our lives. I know some of the things you posted on LinkedIn. I think one of the questions you asked, and you can correct me if I'm not quoting you correctly here, but I believe one of the questions were, what are you doing from a mindfulness standpoint on a daily basis?
Yes.
And I think that's a very important question. And I love that question because, I know as a person who considers himself as a conscious leader who working with a higher purpose and wants to impact my vision on the world, because I know it's going to have a positive, progressive impact. But a lot of times you forget in that quest to be mindful because you get up and you say, well, here's what I got to do. Here's the phone calls I got to make. Here's the meetings I got to have. Here's the proposals I have to write. Here's the books I have to write or whatever you're doing. And sometimes you get lost in forgetting that I need to stop for a minute and just be present and be mindful. So for me, when
Yeah.
I read that question, it was like, wow, that's something I have to do every single day. So I actually now have it in my calendar or my notification to come on each day when I wake up at 5 a.m. Be mindful as a reminder. So I can really kind of
Awesome.
begin my day in that context.
So, as you hint towards it, being mindful is not just or already it's amazing, right? To take time like 20 minutes, an hour in the morning and or at night to have some meditation. Being mindful is becoming aware of oneself and where one is related to a task or a conversation or a situation. So, in other words, ideally, we are mindful all the time, every moment. And so we can decide, for instance, to have kind of a process where every hour we put an alarm on our phone, and that alarm allows us to spend a minute or 30 seconds even to say, okay, who am I now? Who is that? Is it like I'm being the CEO or the husband or etc. Or wife for that matter? Or am I just me in this moment? Am I totally lost into the work that I'm doing, as you were mentioning earlier? Or am I just being the vehicle of that work for it to be done, which is a slightly but very important difference.
Mm,
So
mm.
being mindful is about that. So, and it can last, I mean, the checking in can last 10 seconds. And if you can do it every minute, that's amazing, right?
Right.
That may be a bit of a difficulty. But as you do, as this becomes a pattern, meaning it becomes a habit, then easily and without effort, it becomes the way you are all the time. So, so that pattern grows, in other words, and becomes something that is part of you all the time. So, yeah, it's a great practice and discipline that is helping you to become a better version of yourself for yourself, at the very least.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I really appreciate the uh, opportunity to build a relationship with someone like yourself. At this stage in my life, I realize, and I say often to people, business is fun, and it's only not fun and enjoyable when you're doing business with folks where it's just strictly about the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
You just meet someone and you're like, okay, well, we both have a common goal. And so the common goal is to make this money together. So let's enter into this transactional relationship to make it happen. And you got to get all
Mm-hmm.
kind of contracts and attorneys and everything to make sure that you hold the other person accountable to their word and they're holding you accountable to your word in order to make sure that you all both are moving integrity in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what I've discovered in my now 52 years of living, it's much better to do business with people who are conscious minded first. And you begin to learn about who they are, their principles, what guides their behaviors, their values, and you build a relationship first. And then through that relationship, you look for ways to do transactions. And those transactions, I believe, will be much more meaningful than just coming together just strictly for the transaction first.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to have a discussion with you as a conscious leader and learn from you, and have already, we've been talking, I mean, we've known each other now for about maybe, I think 4 or 5 years, but within the last 2 months, we really began being engaging with each other. And you've exposed me to some people in your network that I'm actually talking to, and, and vice versa, hopefully. So I say all that to say is that to me is what I look forward to. I look forward to making daily connections and conversations with conscious leaders, whether that's just post readings, uh, Zoom calls, or Instagram, Twitter, whatever the communication device is that we're doing. I look forward to those engagements now. And that to me is much more inspiring. And that's the fun of business than just focus on making money. Because I know that if we focus on creating value, eventually that value will lead to revenue being generated from that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a universal law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, being a conscious leader also directs us towards a place where it is less and less and less about segregation and being mind-driven and competition and scarcity, the idea of scarcity, and more towards collaboration, towards there is abundance in one way or another, and we can all win together and not to the expense of someone else, right?
Yes.
And growth comes from that mostly, and less from the scarcity-based efforts that most of us tend to do or to go after at first, because it seems to be the only way. Well, there is another way, and that other way lives in our heart, in our way of being conscious of ourselves, of being conscious of the flow of life, of business as well, which is part of our life, and being able to navigate it instead of, in other words, it's like being a skipper of a sailing boat, right? So you're not going straight forward because the wind and the sun and the currents and the water itself, etc., might not want you to go that way at first. But you will definitely arrive at destination, and most likely at a better destination. At least the journey will have transformed you in the process. So that's a bit the same thing. A conscious leader, or a conscious business, is a skipper of a sailing boat. He's aware of himself, of the environment where he's working in, and he's able to play with the elements, the wind, the sun, the water, etc. And in our case, in the business case, well, the different stakeholders, right? And to find a place of coherence so that everybody is actually brought up higher, in other words, growing faster for everyone, right? And it is possible. It's just for each of us to allow it, to accept that it can be, and it happens. But it's only then, once we have accepted it, that it can happen, not before.
Absolutely, absolutely. That makes sense. So let me ask you this question. I know that you provide coaching services to,
Mm.
uh, conscious leaders, CEOs. So can you walk me through what is your process for how you conduct your coaching services?
So I have a method. It's called the Heartful method, and it's 160 charts. So it's a visual map of how consciousness works, how the mind and the heart, which are these duality that we are in, work together and separately. And the purpose of that method is to help the individual to become more conscious, to become more aware, to get into more harmony, into more coherence with himself or herself, to invite in their experience more balance, more peace, and more love, which is synonym of growth. So it's synonym of flow as well. Okay, so that's the purpose. How the method works. Well, from a very pragmatic standpoint, we have a reset week with 3 sessions of about 90 minutes, where we dive deep into the person's world to understand better what are the different aspects of her world and how it works. And then after that, we're going to have 12 sessions of 90 minutes as well, where we'll go through these 160 charts and slides that will give us a framework, not from a knowledge perception, but more from an experience standpoint. So that framework helps us to redefine our relationship with ourselves, with our reality, with our environment, which has a direct impact on my personal relationships, my professional relationships, my capacity to grow, financially speaking included, from a health perspective, from a relationship perspective, etc. And as we go through these sessions, we start to become more aware, more conscious of ourselves. We start to identify less with the challenges and opportunities, etc., that comes up. And we are freer so that you are able to actually get to the next level in terms of potentials and choices that are happening in your life. And we're learning that process of 12 weeks, how to decipher how life is expressing itself through all the different events that happen week in, week out. And as we do decipher them, we unlock the issues that are being expressed, and the person is free to the next week to experience the positive aspect of what was blocked prior to the session. So in other words, in these 12 sessions, the person is acquiring tools so that she can continue on her journey to be able to really jump from one octave to another, so to speak. So that means to be able to let go of patterns that are hampering her in her growth, and by doing so, opening up to new positive outcomes that were not possible before. And like what I was saying earlier, it's only when I allow for growth to happen in a collaborative way that it can happen. So the same thing, if I don't allow, for instance, I don't know, that my relationships, or for instance, that only I can receive big checks if I suffer, if that's the current pattern within which I am, this is what is going to repeat again and again and again. So what if I would help you have the tools to help you transform that and go past it? So jump from one octave to another related to that, so that all of a sudden you're not conditioned anymore by that belief system, by that pattern. So all of a sudden you will enter into a new world where big checks come in easily without effort. That's another type of world that you may have not been ready for before, for whatever the reasons. And usually it's not related to the business itself. It's for other aspects of ourselves. So that's the gist of this coaching of these 12 weeks, is to provide you these tools. And sometimes I have CEOs asking me to become advisor of the company so we can go faster, so the company can grow faster, thanks to the work we're continuing doing. And I have had clients for 2 or 3 years in a row, and companies are growing super fast thanks to the work we're doing together. I mean, it's not me in essence, it's more the person that is actually listening, using the tools and making it happen. I'm a facilitator, a catalyst, so that it happens faster.
So with that being said, what do you do to prevent yourself from, and maybe this doesn't happen to you, but I'm just saying that I know, when you work with other people who, and you're especially dealing with folks who are dealing with a lot of internal issues, a lot of internal conflict, what do you do as a conscious leader to make sure you don't allow that to absorb into your consciousness?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Well, the process through which a conscious leader needs to go through is to let go of that need of identification, which is a core need that we get, through our families and our society at first. That's, the very basic instruments of our economy is based on the need of identification, whether it's movies or it's brands, right? If I identify with Hermes, I'm going to go and buy Hermes because that's amazing. Or Mercedes for that matter, same thing, right? So a conscious leader is slowly but surely helping himself by letting go of that sense of identification. That doesn't mean that he doesn't own a Mercedes, for instance, but he doesn't define himself by it, right? Or a Porsche or whatever other brand. So once he does that, what happens is that any situation that comes up becomes less and less important, or it matters less. Matter in the original sense of the word. That doesn't mean that he will not take action and do what needs to be done to solve the situation, whichever it is, but he or she will be less identified with the outcome of that situation, to take that example. Should a person come with a specific type of emotional issue, as you were mentioning earlier, that resonates with that conscious leader, right? Because if not, that person wouldn't have been able to be part of that experience anyway, from the conscious leader perspective. His work, again, it's a bit the mindfulness exercise we're talking about earlier, is saying, okay, if I am identifying to that special emotional configuration that is happening in front of my eyes in this moment, becoming aware of it is a super big step, right? And by doing so, I am less identified to it. And now what I can do as a conscious leader is, okay, why was I triggered by this? So that's the next step. See, any situation in life is there for us to love ourselves more. So in that way of seeing things, right, in that perception that I'm just mentioning now, a situation comes up, a challenge between quotes, right? Whether it's a business issue or an emotional conversation with someone. It is because I, as a conscious leader, is on that journey towards loving myself more, that I will accept the challenge, be aware of it, and then learn from it that this aspect of me needed more care and more compassion, and I am going to do so they can transform and comes back to the fold. And by doing so, I'm freeing myself from that from that apparent issue that was showing up. Okay, so this way, not only the conscious leader is helping himself, but it is also helping the person who may wake up to, oh, that's a different type of reaction, right? And why is that, and so on. But that's another story. And the conscious leader serves obviously his business. Well, if we're talking about business, but a leader is a leader of one's life in any case, right?
Right.
Or his community, to take that example, by getting access to a new vibration level that is higher and therefore can serve more people. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. But I did want to drill down on a quote that you said there, something I want to pull out from what you just said that I found to be very profound. You said that each day is an opportunity for us to learn how to love each other more, love ourselves more.
Yes.
And just for clarification standpoint, can you define what you mean by love in that context?
Yes. So within the framework that I have put together, which is inspired by science and Western philosophies and so on, and religions for that matter, the very core essence of our being is love. Okay, that's the texture, that's the foundation of you, Christopher, me, Arnaud, etc., etc. That's the foundation, so the bottom, right? And it's up to us to open to it. So in other words, it's always there, a bit like our mother's love, right? It's always there. Do we pay attention to it? That's another matter. We tend to forget ourselves and go here, there. Oh, it's shiny that way, so I'll go that way, etc. So love within that context is really cleaning up the windshield so that I can be cleaner and cleaner, purer and purer, lighter and lighter. And by doing so, that love that is my core essence, like a fountain, can go up and expand in all aspects of my being. So it's not a narcissism idea that I'm offering here. It is more where I'm all centered on myself, etc. It's more a blossoming. And it's inviting more coherence and harmony, because love is pure harmony, or beauty for that matter is pure love as well. So when there is a total coherence of everything, when you're in flow, right, you've had that experience, it feels like you're on a cloud. It's bliss, it's love. I mean, you can't explain it any other way than that. And so it's letting go of these patterns that are hampering that experience that is always there. So that I'm able to now live a magical life, a life made of flow, of balance, of peace, of love, and where everything starts to put itself together one step at a time. And it's not all on me. It's the whole reality, the whole universe that goes in that direction.
Now, one of the things that I wrestle with is, I wake up in an environment where I love the city I'm working in, I love from the historical context, the cultural context, and possibly the potential of what the city can be. But in its present form, it's a city that's full of violence, full of crime, full of poverty, full of trash, full of corruption, right? And so with all that being said, the challenge is remaining conscious in this environment.
Yes.
Now, I know that where you're located, I shouldn't say I know, but I believe where you're located is a place that doesn't have all those barriers on your consciousness wearing down, right?
Yes.
So do you go through a certain level of rituals each day that you wake up and put yourself through to put yourself at the best frequency to receive the harmony of love that you talked about before?
So yes, I do anywhere I am, right? That's the thing. So you're putting the finger on something important, which is what we were describing earlier. The harsher the contrast, which is that place of crime and poverty and scarcity, etc., is a huge contrast to which, as it is big, as it's really present, it's very difficult not to identify to it, which is what you were just describing, which is a blessing also, because it is so blatant, that it is so in your face, that you have to pay attention. And you have to pay attention to the fact that the moment you are identifying, you're losing yourself in it. So that's great. If you were in a place where it is very peaceful and so on, the other side of the spectrum, it might be more difficult to feel the nuances where you are actually identifying. Here, you don't have a choice. It's very 0 or 1, right? It's night and day. So it's a blessing too, even if it's, I understand it's also difficult because you see all these people that are not living by these standards. Now, interestingly enough, in that journey of the conscious leader, so everything is a choice always at all levels of one's being. So there's a choice of, waking up in the morning. There's a choice of taking a breakfast or talking with this or that person to move forward a business or relationship. And there is also the choice of I am being, again, identifying to that process or just being me, etc. Including in these choices are, choosing the context within which you are. So you may have been born in Baltimore, right? But nevertheless, it is a constant choice of inviting that environment in your reality for whichever the reasons, and all are good. Now, this is a choice one becomes aware of and accepted as such. It's okay, not a problem at all. And we make do the best we can with it. Number one, of course, we accept it. We have compassion, not only for ourselves, but also for all the other people, of course, right? Who are living that, which gives us more energy to do more or do better also. That is a beautiful motivation, right? Because it's so close to oneself. But one is doing it from a state of peacefulness, of core expression of your essence, right? You're not doing it because you want recognition. You're doing it because it is who you are, to build this project or that project to the service of these individuals, for instance. And by doing so, you are not only becoming a better version of yourself that is growing in his community and in himself, right? But also you are serving more and more people. And it is only once you accept your choices that you are able to do it. And that's very important as well. Because if you're still in the ways, because one could be feeling as a victim of that environment, right? I'm feeling insecure, et cetera, which is okay too. In that context, in that way of being, there's no potential impact you could have as a conscious leader.
Right. Right.
So let's look at it from the other standpoint and become motivated by it.
Absolutely. Which brings up why I see the importance of getting away from this on a quarterly basis, right? Being able to get out of this environment and go to a different environment, which is why I believe that it's so important that I'm interested in being an attendee and advocate for the retreats that you're going to be hosting. Because I definitely know that a shakeup in the environment, changes everything. Your energy level, your spirit level, your conscious level.
Yeah.
And being able to go to an environment that also has a historical context of beauty, of love, of an energy that's different than what we've experienced, particularly for someone like myself who's coming from the energy I experience daily here and going to the energy there. So I just kind of want you to share some of the things that you experience where you're living, the energy and your daily walks and your daily interactions with people, and share some of that now so that, that gets me motivated to be a part of the retreat when we have those retreats.
I mean, I'm very fortunate indeed to be able to be in tune with myself and my environment, where in this case, I have an environment, the one where the retreat will be in France, where there is a simplicity in the community, right? Where we have, in this case, it's a super small village, 90 inhabitants on a mountain, amazing views, and birds, and some hens and some cows, and that's it. And a very close community where everybody help each other, and everybody is friend with each other, and we're having celebrations, etc., regularly. So it's a place that is blessed on its own. It has, the water comes from the mountain, and there's no treatment to the water. I mean, it's an Eden, right? In so many ways. Now, this is a context of harmony again, and it's a context of simplicity, as I mentioned earlier, where peace and balance and love is easy to access. Also that, because, so again, this is my perception of myself, to have these attributes, right? And to focus on these. The same way, in this case, I'm experiencing it through my environment too. So I have a sense of ultimate coherence, because all of it is in coherence with itself. It's harmonious. So, and the fact also that I have sacred spaces around here, like the El Camino and Lord and so on, reinforces that idea of harmony and beauty at the same time. So this is an amazing place, but there are other amazing places across the world, many, many, many. But the bottom line is, it only exists because I hold it in my heart and because I'm present to it. So I invite anybody to actually build and nurture that version of harmony that is theirs in their heart, their vision, their heart vision, and he will grow. And it will grow in his heart, in the heart of the person, and then in the body, and then gradually across all the experience of that individual. It's bound to, as long as we don't lose focus in our, in our direction and get to the next shiny thing.
Right, absolutely. Or are you lacking? And this question comes from, I pretty much know the answer, but I just want to have you share the answer for folks who might not know the answer. From an amenity standpoint, from here in America, we got certain conveniences that we're used to, right? Folks who never traveled out of the country, they might be concerned about access to water, food, grocery stores, things of that nature when you travel overseas. Are you lacking any of that where you are? Is there any kind of thing you have to sacrifice as a result of where you are that here in America we can get?
I mean, from a pragmatic standpoint, the only thing we are sacrificing is probably access to the theaters and the opera and the museums. Yes, although it's about 1 hour drive from here, so it's not that difficult. And then we have quality internet, and we're going to have the fiber soon. And then from there, no, not really. We have Spain, which is a few miles from here as well, so we can jump into Spain very quickly if we want to. So no, it's and also don't forget the fact that as you grow into this, what I described earlier, everything becomes simpler, and you don't need that many more things, right? So yeah, having a Porsche around here doesn't really make sense. I mean, you can, right? But it's a bit out of need, really.
Do you need a car where you are? I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, you're in the mountain, life, so you need to go back and forth. Yes.
Okay. What about grocery stores and food? Where do you?
It's about 20 minutes. So there are markets in every village every few days, and then by local farmers. Not the US way, not like in the US, like real markets and with low prices and very, very nice vegetables and so on. And then we have the supermarkets, right, as well, which are 15 minutes from here. So you have to go down the mountain and go in the valley basically and go purchase your thing. And you do that once a week. You don't need much more than that. I mean, if you're a big family, obviously you do, but you have a freezer and you put things in the freezer, etc. Right? So it's rather simple again. So and yeah, that's. I mean, again, depends on your activities, right? If it's only a remote activity, it's super simple because you go out once a week and you take care of the weekly needs, and then you stay up in the mountain for the rest of the week, and you go on walks every day in the mountain, and then in the tree, looking at the trees and so on, and the view, of course, and then you do your work.
Well, one last question before we get ready to wrap things up. The real estate investor in me, this question comes out, especially as someone who's at my age now looking for a place to retire, so to speak.
Yes.
So I can just go live somewhere and write and not be caught up in it, but I'm caught up. So what is the likelihood of being about property where you are in that 90-person mountain community? Is it easier for someone like myself wanting to come over there and buy a villa or rent a villa, or what would be the possibility of happening, and what are some of the challenges of pricing as relates to that?
I mean, the pricing won't be an issue because the prices here are a lot lower than in the US. the biggest hurdle you're going to have is get a visa for long term. Well, it's not a big issue either, but right, you need to get a long term visa to be able to stay in France in that case, or in the Schengen space. Doesn't have to be in France. So that's the first step. Once you clear that up, so some people have a descendancy from Europe, so it's easy that way, or to even get a passport, a Schengen passport. Some will just request the visa, and that's a possibility without a problem. Now, price-wise, I mean, in a village like this one, the most expensive house, which is a very nice house, is probably $350,000. So, and it's not a very liquid market, right? But you can get for lower prices as well, for sure. Smaller houses and so on. And so you've got like houses that are from the doctor, or like the nice houses, and then you've got the more farming kind of houses that are less expensive and smaller. So yeah, I mean, there is a lot of different possibilities, of course.
All right. Well, any closing thoughts you want to share with anyone, everyone that about how to get in contact with you? And again, we're doing these sessions to really give people awareness about the retreats coming up. So anything you want to share in that context, in that space?
I mean, I guess if you want to know more, go to tapuat.com/harmony and register there. There's a little workshop about 3 ways to find harmony within, which I recommend. It was given to 50 ladies from technology a while ago, and they really loved it. And that's a highlight. And then on the website, there will be a lot more. So Tapuat is TAPUAT.com. And I guess we'll put the link in the video anyway. And so, and I'm happy to talk further with any person that is interested.
Okay. Well, again, Arnaud, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. And thank you for your words. And more importantly, thank you for your presence.
And thank you for yours.
Until next week, have a blessed and productive day.
You too.